Most men think modern dating is a young man's game. Fast, loud, desperate for attention. But that's exactly why so many of them are losing without even realizing it. Because there's a silent advantage nobody talks about. A psychological edge that only experience creates. And once a man understands it, the entire dating dynamic changes. The older man's tactical edge in modern dating is not about tricks, money, or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about something far more dangerous in today's world: emotional control, presence, and quiet confidence. And the truth is, the older man's tactical edge in modern dating gets stronger exactly when most men think their best years are behind them. So if you're a man who wants to understand modern relationships on a deeper level, subscribe to the channel right now. This channel was made for men who want real psychological insight, not shallow dating advice, and help us hit our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Topic 1. Why younger men are losing without realizing it. Most younger men don't even realize they're already losing before the conversation even starts. And it's not because they lack looks, money, or ambition. The problem runs way deeper than that. They've been conditioned to seek approval nonstop. They post hoping for reactions, text looking for validation, and walk into dates like they're trying to pass some kind of interview. And the craziest part? The harder they try to impress, the less presence they actually have. Because deep down, people who are starving for attention always reveal it in subtle ways. An older man has usually moved past the stage of needing to prove himself every 5 minutes. He understands something most younger guys still haven't figured out. Secure people don't chase recognition all day long. You can see it at a dinner table, for example. While the younger guy tries to fill every second of silence by talking too much, the experienced man knows how to listen, observe, and leave space. Sounds small, but it completely changes the energy of the interaction. Women notice very quickly when they're around someone who's emotionally comfortable in his own skin. And nowadays, that's rare. The truth is, a lot of modern men are living in a constant state of social anxiety without even noticing it. Always trying to seem more interesting, more desirable, more important. It's almost like they're performing all the time. But there's a massive difference between a man who has built value and a man trying to convince everyone else that he has value. And that's exactly where the older man's silent advantage begins. Because after enough life experience, he learns something that changes the whole game. The power of not reacting emotionally to everything. Topic 2. The power of emotional calm. There's a reason emotionally calm men naturally attract attention without trying too hard. They don't give off that chaotic energy of someone constantly trying to control everything. And today, in a world where almost everybody reacts impulsively to texts, social media, and tiny rejections, calmness has become power. A man who doesn't lose composure easily gives off a rare sense of stability. It's like walking into a loud room and seeing one person completely relaxed in his own silence. That kind of energy shifts the whole atmosphere without saying a single word. Older men usually learn this the hard way. After heartbreaks, breakups, betrayals, and disappointments, they realize reacting emotionally to everything only hands power over to other people. So over time, they stop reacting and start responding instead. Sounds simple, but it's not. When a woman takes hours to reply to a text, most guys immediately spiral mentally. The experienced guy? He keeps living his life. He hits the gym, focuses on work, hangs out with friends, reads something like The Way of the Superior Man, or just disappears from his phone for a while. And because of that, he naturally gives off a much stronger presence. What's interesting is that women constantly test men emotionally, without even realizing they're doing it. Not necessarily in a manipulative way, but because emotions reveal weaknesses fast. Small changes in behavior, delays, disagreements, all of that exposes who can stay grounded and who completely loses control. And here's the part most men don't understand. Attraction isn't built only on looks or status. A lot of the time, it's built on the emotional atmosphere a man creates around himself. And once a man learns to master his emotions, he starts developing something very few modern men still have. A life that doesn't revolve around female attention. Topic 3. The silent advantage of having a life. One of the biggest advantages older men have is that most of the time, they've already built a life outside of relationships. And that changes everything. Younger men often make the mistake of turning women into the emotional center of their entire existence. They cancel plans, abandon goals, and stay glued to their phones waiting for replies. But experienced men usually have routines, responsibilities, hobbies, purpose, and even genuine enjoyment in their own company. And there's something incredibly magnetic about a man who doesn't seem empty when he's alone. Women can instantly tell the difference between a man who genuinely has an interesting life and a guy who's just trying to look interesting online. There's a huge gap between someone posting motivational quotes on Instagram and a man who actually wakes up early, takes care of his body, works on his goals, and stays disciplined when nobody's watching. Older men understand that purpose isn't something you announce. It shows up in the way you walk, speak, and organize your life. And maybe that's exactly what so many modern men are losing while staying distracted all the time. Ironically, the less a man makes female attention his top priority, the more naturally people notice him. Not because he's playing mind games, but because his energy stops communicating neediness. Picture a man spending his Saturday training, reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, meeting friends, or building something meaningful for his future. That kind of lifestyle creates emotional depth, and depth is rare in a world addicted to instant gratification. But this silent advantage becomes even more powerful once a man learns another forgotten skill: the ability to stop desperately chasing everything he wants. Topic 4. The tactical edge of not chasing. There's a reason so many men lose value the moment they start chasing too hard. The more they try to force connection, attention, or validation, the more their energy screams scarcity. And this happens constantly today. Double texting, needing instant replies, panicking when someone pulls away for a few hours. It seems small, but it reveals something much deeper underneath. Older men usually understand that emotional chasing almost never creates genuine attraction. Most of the time, it only exposes fear of losing. What experienced men eventually learn is that timing matters more than intensity. They don't feel the need to rush everything immediately. They understand that strong connection doesn't come from speed. It comes from emotional tension built over time. Think about the difference between a guy trying to schedule dates every single day and a man who stays present while still focused on his own life. The second man gives off emotional abundance, and abundance is quietly attractive, because emotionally strong people don't behave like this is their only shot at happiness. That doesn't mean becoming cold, manipulative, or emotionally distant on purpose. That's where a lot of modern masculinity content gets things wrong. Real power comes from not turning desire into desperation. Older men learn how to care about someone without losing themselves in the process. They learn that rejection doesn't destroy their identity, and most importantly, they understand that the more internal value a man builds, the less he feels the need to convince someone to stay. But that level of calm doesn't come out of nowhere. It usually comes from something most men try to avoid: the failures that shaped their confidence for real. Topic 5. Confidence built through failure. Most younger men believe confidence comes from constant success, but older men know real confidence is usually built in the exact opposite way. It comes after rejection, failure, divorce, quiet humiliation, and those moments when life forces a man to rebuild himself from scratch. And there's something deeply different about a man who has emotionally lost everything and still remains standing, because now he knows he can survive, and that realization completely changes his presence. What's fascinating is that women often sense this without the man ever talking about his past. Some men walk into a room trying hard to look confident, almost like actors playing a role. Others carry a completely different kind of calmness. They don't need to impress as much. They don't need to raise their voice, flash money, or compete for attention. Experience changed something inside them. Maybe because after enough pain, small rejections stop feeling like the end of the world. And when a man no longer fears losing approval, Desperation naturally disappears from his behavior. There's also a modern trap hidden in all of this. A lot of men confuse arrogance with real confidence. They buy cars they can't afford, fake perfect lives on social media, and turn ego into a daily performance. But true confidence is quieter than that. It's the man who can sit alone at a restaurant without feeling awkward. It's the guy who can hear no without emotionally collapsing. And ironically, the more secure someone becomes internally, the more they start giving off something women deeply value today: emotional safety. Topic 6. Women feel safer around grounded men. There's a massive difference between a man who feels intense and a man who feels safe, and women notice it almost immediately. Emotionally unstable men usually try to rush everything: attention, intimacy, validation, connection. Grounded men do the opposite. They project calmness. They don't seem desperate to be chosen. And honestly, that's one of the biggest reasons older men naturally become more attractive over time. In a world filled with emotional chaos, stability has become rare and extremely valuable. What's interesting is that emotional safety has nothing to do with being nice or passive. In fact, grounded men usually have very clear boundaries. They know how to say no. They know how to walk away from chaotic situations. And most importantly, they don't turn temporary emotions into permanent drama. Think about the man who gets challenged or provoked and still stays emotionally in control. That kind of energy communicates silent strength. Because anybody can lose their temper, very few people can stay centered when emotional pressure starts building. The most fascinating part is that many modern women have spent years dealing with emotionally unpredictable men. Impulsive men, insecure men, men addicted to validation or completely lost in their identity. So when they meet someone emotionally grounded, the feeling instantly changes. It feels like maturity. It feels psychologically safe. It feels peaceful. And no matter how much the world tries to convince people that looks are everything, emotional connection still comes from the feeling someone creates around you. But there's a hidden factor behind all of this that's quietly destroying a huge number of modern men: the constant addiction to digital attention and validation. Topic 7. The attention economy destroyed most men. It has never been easier to get attention, and at the same time, never harder to be genuinely interesting. Most modern men live trapped inside an invisible showcase, constantly trying to appear desirable. Carefully planned stories, strategic pictures, overthought replies, non-stop craving for digital validation. And the problem isn't social media itself. The problem begins when a man's self-worth starts depending on it. Little by little, many men stopped building a real life and started building a version of themselves designed only for online consumption. Older men usually see this game very differently, maybe because they grew up in a time when presence mattered more than performance. They understand that men addicted to attention eventually become predictable, always available, always replying instantly, always trying to impress. And predictability rarely creates deep attraction. There's something powerful about a man who doesn't seem emotionally enslaved to his phone. A man who can go hours without checking notifications gives off something almost extinct today: self-control. And self-control has always been a quiet form of power. What's ironic is that many men believe they need to expose themselves more in order to be valued, when the opposite is usually true. The more someone constantly seeks validation, the more mystery, presence, and emotional depth they lose. Experienced men understand that value isn't created through overexposure. It's created through scarcity, consistency, and the ability to stay centered in a world constantly trying to hijack your attention. And when a man finally breaks free from the need for external approval, something completely shifts inside him. He stops chasing and starts seeing himself as the prize for the very first time. Topic 8. The final shift: becoming the prize. There comes a moment in some men's lives when something quietly changes inside them. They stop walking into rooms wondering, will people like me? And start asking whether those people even deserve access to their life in the first place. It sounds like a small shift, but it completely transforms masculine energy. Because while most men spend years chasing female approval, experienced men eventually learn to value their own time, peace, and direction. And once that happens, they stop giving off neediness. Now they give off choice. What's interesting is that this transformation rarely happens because of motivational quotes or dating techniques. It usually comes after years of trying to please the wrong people, chasing empty relationships, and realizing that external validation never truly fulfills a man. So little by little, he starts building something more solid internally. His self-worth stops depending on texts, likes, or constant female attention. And ironically, that's exactly when people begin seeing him differently. Because people who don't desperately need approval naturally become more magnetic. Maybe that's the real tactical edge older men have in modern dating. Not looks, not money, not even experience with women, but the ability to remain emotionally whole without needing someone else to constantly confirm their worth. And very few men truly understand how powerful that is today. In a world addicted to anxiety, performance, and validation, an emotionally free man becomes rare. And rare things naturally attract attention. Because at the end of the day, relationships always reveal the same silent question: who truly controls their own emotional life? Conclusion. At the end of the day, the real advantage of an older man was never just age. It was awareness, experience, emotional control, the ability to stay grounded in a world full of noise, validation, and chaos. And maybe the biggest question is this: how different would your relationships become if you stopped chasing approval and started building real value within yourself? Because most men spend years trying to be chosen, while very few ever become the kind of man who naturally stands out without forcing anything. So now the decision is yours. Will you keep reacting emotionally to everything around you? Or will you start developing the calm, discipline, and presence that modern dating quietly rewards? And if this video gave you a new perspective, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This channel is for men who want deeper psychological truths about dating, masculinity, and modern relationships, not surface-level advice. And don't forget, we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so join us and be part of it.